Hello and welcome, New Zealand. The Safe and Effective Roadshow is just around the corner. In fact, I see that depending on when you watch this video, I see that the early bird discounts are going to expire very, very soon, so don't miss out on early bird discounts. Now, look, this conference is not just a boring day listening to doctors talk about medical studies all day. It's a little bit of that, but what it's really about is listening to the people that have been hurt, people that have been injured, our people. People that have been coerced into a medical procedure and is now paying the price and are being ignored. And we can't ignore this. We can't ignore what's been going on, all this type of stuff. Now, this is why you need to support the Safe and Effective Roadshow. Because in a sense, in fact, I might ask you about this soon, Ali, in a sense, this is putting the system on notice. This is recording and making a historical change so that we never, ever get a repeat of what's happened over the last 2 or 3 years. So the Safe and Effective Roadshow, we're beginning on the 9th of November in Dunedin, then a few days later in Queenstown, Nelson, and finishing on Friday the 15th in Wellington on the 15th of November. And so please use the links, book your ticket, and I'll be at all 4 events. I'd love to see you come up and introduce yourself. Would be wonderful. Now I have Ali. Ali, thank you so much for coming and speaking with me. Now, Ali, are you just trying to spread misinformation?
No, spreading truth actually, and truth from our own perspective as a family, and what being vaccine injured means for you as a family experiencing that with a member who's been injured.
So tell us, that's your son that's been injured,
Yes.
and what happened?
He was mandated through his work. He didn't really want to get the shot. I sort of deter from calling it a vaccine because it's actually gene therapy. That's the way I look at it, but it's been sold as a vaccine. He didn't want to get it, and then he eventually gave in. He was going to lose the truck that he'd got. He's a truck driver, class 5 truck driver, and he took the shot in Cromwell and then started his daily drive from Cromwell to Christchurch, and he got as far as just outside of Ashburton, and he couldn't breathe and had chest pain, and he basically had to call the Healthline, which he did. He called Healthline, they made him pull over, called an ambulance, and he was taken to Ashburton Hospital. So that was the first thing. And then he was taken from the next day. He was discharged from there. They discharged him as having anxiety. I said, don't worry about it. You've just got worked up. Didn't blood test him. Then they sent him out of there. The next day, the chest pain got worse. He went to Christchurch Hospital. 2 days later, he went to Queenstown Hospital. And then he was with the doctor, and a year later he had another ambulance again to this time to Nelson Hospital. Oh no, actually Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. He spent Christmas Eve, he went into Nelson Hospital, then he tried to go down with his friends, and he ended up in Ashburton Hospital a year later on New Year's Eve. He spent his New Year's Eve on a hospital bed in Ashburton with his friends sleeping outside in the car. So they had a great New Year's Eve. And then the following October, which was just last October, he had another ambulance again, and he's had several doctor's visits, cardiologist visits, and we finally got a diagnosis. We finally got into a cardiologist, because what happened was his referral went missing. His referral to a cardiologist through the Nelson Hospital went missing. And then we got a wonderful doctor from down in Dunedin who started helping us with our ACC claim, Dr. Lily Nightingale. And she went and investigated to try and find his ECGs. And she discovered that all his ECGs from 3 hospitals were missing from straight after the vaccine. They just miraculously disappeared off the system. So we launched an investigation at Christchurch Hospital, Canterbury District Health Board, which cover Ashburton as well, the Lakes District. And they managed to find one out of the ambulance of his arrival into Ashburton, and one that was on an off-hospital site archive of the Christchurch day after the vaccine visit to the ED, and then those went before the cardiologist, who said there is ST elevation here and PR depression consistent with pericarditis. He had the pericarditis the day of the vaccine. It instantly set in, and it was there the next day. So that gave us a confirmed diagnosis by a cardiologist, which we saw privately because Nelson had lost the referral to the cardiologist. And we're still fighting ACC. We're waiting in the next few days. We're hoping that the Independent Complaints Review Authority, because ACC turned him down, we're hoping that they will find in his favour. So that's where we're up to right now. And so that experience has given us, well, it's tough, but it's given us an experience of knowing what vaccine injured go through and what options they have. And I think that's what we've learned through it's kind of important, particularly with the Independent Complaints Review Authority, because a lot of people get turned down by ACC and they don't realise that that is an option open to them, which is an independent body where you can take your claim, and people do win against ACC with the Independent Complaints Review Authority. So we're hoping they'll accept Bailey's claim and tell ACC they have to accept it. So that's kind of where we are now, but Bailey still has pains. And in fact, today he's just rung me up because he's almost out of his colchicine prescription, which is a drug that they give you for pericarditis. And he basically has to keep taking that or the attacks come back. So his pericarditis doesn't, I don't think, behaves like other people's pericarditis. It just is a permanent fixture in his life now. Which is hard when you're 28, 25 he was, now he's 28, you know?
And as a mother, you must have been quite traumatised that this has happened. And especially after it's happened, you've then learned more probably about the vaccine or the genetic modification.
Absolutely.
Well, and so this is
I didn't want him to have it.
Even your own, this has probably intensified even your own anxiety, has it?
Well, yeah, it does, because it's your, that's your child. And so it's been a difficult road, but I guess it's solidified my stand against this. So I was already standing against people being forced into having this and against the mandates anyway, because I just thought it was totally immoral and a breach of the Bill of Rights, taking people's jobs away doesn't mean you've got a choice. That's no choice when you're going to lose your income, possibly lose your home. That's no medical choice. So it should be without coercion.
Yeah. So for you, Ali, how important is it for people to attend a Safe and Effective Roadshow? Like, you've got a real true story to share. Can you explain why you really want to urge people to come?
I think it's really important for people to come because I think the thing is, like I say, what you learn from going through that is that we've got, quite a lot to offer, especially because he has got a diagnosis, and that diagnosis did take 2 years. And I mean, even if they hadn't lost the referral, it still takes 2 years to get to a cardiologist in New Zealand. And I think this is the thing. It's we can pass on the experiences we've got and maybe help people fast track to get to where they need to be to get some assistance, because this is it. You feel left behind, you feel gaslit, people call you anti-vaxxer and all these names, and, these people that are injured, there's thousands of them. And I don't think, because the media doesn't sort of tend to report anything, people don't realise there's been 11 million paid out to vaccine injuries already in New Zealand by ACC. The costs to, the health system. And I think there's a lot more young people out there that are actually ill from this than let on. And I recently put through an OIA to ask for the number of admittances to EDs from 2020, 2021 through to 2024 of people under the age of 40 reporting with chest pain. And the figures that came back were quite dramatic. They got written on and they got covered actually in Australia, an Australian breakfast show hosted. He ended up asking New South Wales Health the same question, and they ended up coming back with an answer. Our Ministry of Health is still avoiding giving me some further answers to questions on that. But the reason I did that OIA was because my son went to the cardiologist at Nelson Hospital. That's where they have the private cardiology appointments, is at the hospital. It's a big waiting room, probably fit, I would say somewhere around 60 people fit in that waiting room for specialists. And my son said he walked out and he said, I looked around the room, Mum, and every single person in there was under 30. And there were some that were a lot younger than me. There wasn't a fat person there. There wasn't an old person there. And he said, I got quite a shock. And he said, that sort of, you caught eyes with people and it was just this knowing look. He said, I think they were all there for the same reason as me. Or, there was just, and I thought, right. So I need to actually ask how many of these young people are presenting to EDs. And I mean, that's it. It's, there's a lot of young people that have got this pericarditis, myocarditis issue. And it's, and I'm sure there's people that are actually older that are over 30 as well. But, you can bury those reactions in saying that person's older, more likely to have, heart issues or more likely to have health issues, but you can't in an 18 to 25-year-old public. They're not supposed to have heart conditions en masse. That's not what's supposed to happen. So I think there's a lot of people out there too that maybe don't even realise that that's what's given them this issue. And so that's where the Safe and Effective Roadshow is good for bringing along even someone that suspects it so that they know what to ask for. Now, we've learned through our process, for example, that in that pericarditis, my son didn't test positive in some of those hospital visits for troponin, which is a thing you test in the blood. But not all pericarditis have troponin in their blood. But there's a thing called ST elevation and PR depression. So if you know to actually say, can I have the ECG? And you say to your cardiologist, can you tell me, do I have PR depression or ST elevation there? You kind of know at least something to ask the question of to prove what you've got. And it's very you will know being a doctor that it's there's a different little curve for myocarditis and there's a different little curve for pericarditis. So they can actually, a trained eye can tell. Now, the interesting thing is that those ED doctors that called my son anxiety, they looked at those ECGs. Now, there's one or two things. They either rode over the top of the fact that they had ST elevation and PR depression, or they weren't a trained eye enough to see it. I'm not sure which it is, but it shows you there's a difference between an ED consultant and how he can look at an ECG and how a cardiologist can look at an ECG. So it's information like that you might get at the Safe and Effective Roadshow from those of us that have actually had our families go through that. So we've discovered these things along the way that can maybe help other people to get a diagnosis and to maybe get help. And I mean, I don't know if the help is available because the cardiologist has said to my son, this is new and we don't really know what to do to help you, but she said, I do know that I don't want you as a 28-year-old on colchicine for the rest of your life. So, and so he'd been trying to wean it off. And then I got a text this morning to say he'd got pale and he'd sat down and he had chest pain again because he's been trying to wean himself off colchicine and it's just not working. As soon as he stops taking the colchicine, it comes back again. And this is it. It's not just a reaction with this shot. It's not like an anaphylactic shock and then we get over it. People like my son and the people that you'll hear speak on the Safe and Effective Roadshow have ongoing problems that are there 3 years later. They've not gone away. So it's not like a reaction. It's like an ailment you've been given by it that's not going anywhere. Yeah.
And if it wasn't for people like yourself, because you've done a lot of things, which we might go into a bit later, but you've done a lot of things with other organisations like the NZDSOS. We have other medical practitioners who have challenged the narrative, like Guy Hatchard, for example. We've got all these different people all bringing awareness. So the Safe and Effective Roadshow is really spearheading the voice for people like yourself that may not have the ability to do the research that you have done. And so what sort of like level of comfort does this give you, knowing that there's these group of professionals out there, there's also other people who have been injured, and it means this is not an isolated case for you, is it? It means you're not isolated and alone.
Yeah, well, it does. Attending the Safe and Effective Roadshow gives you, you're able to be with other people who are like-minded. But I think the important thing is now we're starting to see some recognition. This week, we're starting to see a bit of mainstream media out of the UK around the people that have been hurt by the AstraZeneca vaccine and their compensation program, and there's starting to be a wee turnaround. But the doctors that stood up, like the NZDSOS, they stood up for informed consent and the rights at the start, but they've also been helping to come up with ways to treat these people. Now, I've had a fair bit to do with a doctor in the United States called Dr. Peter McCulloch, who's been very helpful, with my son's case and with some of the things that he's come up with. He's got a out for peer review now study on a regime. So that's using, and just to explain anyone that doesn't know, he's a cardiologist, one of the most published in the world, and he has been outspoken about the COVID-19 shots. But he's developed this paper with some other people, and it points to using a couple of different substances, nattokinase, bromelain, and curcumin, but he's using it in with the culture scene, like my son is on, and trying to. These doctors are leading the way in trying to find what to do with these patients. And so my hope, as soon as he gets this peer reviewed, I'm going to shoot it out to people like my cardiologist and say, hey, this guy's been working with his patients to find out, what he can do for patients. Because until we get recognition of vaccine injury, acceptance that it's happened, then we can get research to try to help to find out what's happening inside the bodies of these people that have reacted like my son. Why is my son's heart lining being attacked like that? Why is he continually getting pericarditis? Until we accept that the vaccine or the shot has done this, then the work can't really begin to actually help the people. So my goal is to fight this until I see the research go in to help these people, actually to try and reverse whatever damage this has done in their bodies. And I know that'll be difficult because it's mRNA messenger, but without them accepting what it's done, then the research can't happen. And the doctors that you'll get to meet are the doctors that have already accepted that it's done the damage, and they're trying to find ways to go forward. So people like Dr. McCulloch in the States are leading that drive, and that's great. And there's doctors here that are doing the same, that are in contact with people like him, that are looking for new ways forward to help people, because all you're wanting to do is get well. All my son wants is to have his life back as a 28-year-old. That's what he wants.
There are many thousands, if not tens of thousands, of doctors that were very against this gene therapy before it was administered. The number of doctors now, I think, growing that are, very much against it is growing. And if it wasn't people like yourself, it wasn't organisations, people who are willing to stand up and say, hey, this is wrong, the better. In the early days, we were mocked. We were called conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hat and all sorts of things like that. Well, the evidence is out there now, and that's why I'm excited to be part of the Safe and Effective Roadshow, because obviously, we're seeing this all the time. We thought we'd do a few things, and we put this up to grabs people's attention because when we made that particular sign, it was at a time where people were still too scared to question. And so by having that there, suffering, injuries, or remorse, let's have a chat. And it was quite surprising how many people come up to me and says, well, actually, we're suffering now, but a doctor doesn't want to know about it or can't help us. And And yeah, so well, look, it was really lovely to chat with you, Ali. And I really look forward to meeting you in Nelson. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for being part of it. And maybe after the show, sometime after the show, we can have another chat about the other types of work that you're doing, and also a bit of feedback on the actual Safe and Effective Roadshow itself. But before we finish, is there anything else you'd like to conclude with?
No, not really. Just to say to people, it's the same. Like your sign in the background here in Nelson, we have an outfit called Vision, which is Vaccine Information Network. And they actually sit at the market on a Sunday with their signs out. And amazingly, they get people just coming up that just know they haven't felt well since they actually had the shot. So if you're out there and you like that, and you kind of like, you haven't really got contact with the freedom movement or people that have fought this all the way through, but you haven't felt right, you might get something out of coming to the Safe and Effective Roadshow, because you might find that there are people who can help, and there are things that you can do. And so I hope that people will bring along people that are like that, or people that are like that haven't reached out for help will come along and discover a lot by being there with other people who've been injured or have family members who've been injured, and the doctors that are there, the brave doctors.
Very good. So if you're watching this video, please use the links. It's roadshow.nz to make a booking. As I said, at the 31st of October is when the early bird discounts finish, so you want to get your tickets soon. You don't want to miss out on your seat. But also, you might have friends and family who are not quite well at the moment. Perhaps share this video to give them some comfort. Maybe they want to come along. Thank you very much for watching, and please share this video. Thank you.